Clean Energy Canada has just released a new study called The New Reality, and it's all about Canada's clean energy jobs. And so I'm going to talk to CEO Merran Smith about that. Welcome to the interview, Merran.
Thanks, great to be here.
Well, there's a point that's made in the study that I don't think we talk about enough, so I want to lead with this, and that is that clean energy jobs and clean energy generally, this isn't just about climate policy and reducing GHG emissions, it's about economic competitiveness. We are moving into what Professor Werner Antweiler at UBC calls the second age of electricity, and if you don't have clean energy, you are not going to be competitive. I thought that was an important point.
Yeah, I would say Canada's leading competitors and our leading trading partners have all mostly committed to a net zero world. 127 countries have committed to net zero, and that means shifting off of fossil fuels onto clean energy, renewable energy, and clean energy technologies. And it's not just countries that we trade with, it's companies. We've seen Amazon or companies like Shell or Teck committing to net zero, but also banks and financial institutions. There's now about $9 trillion that is dedicated to transitioning to net zero. And that's trillion with a T, that's a lot of money. So I think the driving forces we know are climate change. The earth is warming. We're seeing it and feeling it here in Canada, droughts, floods, fires, but that the costs of that climate change are just unacceptable, both from an economic standpoint and from a human lives standpoint. And so that's really one of the drivers. The second competitiveness driver is around the costs of these new technologies. So solar, wind, batteries, the cost of those have dropped, say solar over 90% in the past decade. It's now cheaper to use clean energies than fossil fuels in many jurisdictions. And so those things are driving this transition. That's why I say this is different than times in the past where we've talked about this. This is now a business case. This is an imperative to shift to clean energy. And Canada has a lot of opportunities.
Let's talk about jobs. So you estimate that right now there are about 430,000 jobs in clean energy jobs in Canada. That will rise by approximately 50% by 2030. And the number of fossil fuel jobs will decline significantly. Again, another trend that I don't think a lot of Canadians understand really well.
Yeah, so the good news is that the growth in the clean energy sector, that job growth is going to outpace the losses. There'll be a net addition of 85,000 jobs. And as you said, making a total of about 640,000 jobs in the clean energy sector in 2030. And that's the modeling we did with Navius Research is out to 2030. And assuming that Canada moves forward with the new climate plan that they announced in December. So it's great news across the country. Every province sees job growth, in particular, places like Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia have some of the highest job growths in clean energy. And so, we can talk about those. Some of those are jobs in hydrogen. And just last week, we saw in Edmonton, Alberta, $1.3 billion being committed to build a hydrogen plant there. And so that's a real good example of the transition. We're going to see people working in the oil and gas sector now who will be transitioning over to work in a clean energy like hydrogen. Great example.
Right. And well, let's talk about federal climate policy. I mean, the Canadian government has generally acknowledged that it finally has a climate plan that will or could lead to net zero by 2050. But, this is Canada, and we have a decentralized federation, and a lot of this relies on provinces. BC is a leader. We have others that are laggards, we'll call them. And so how do you think that we will resolve that issue of having to rely on provincial governments to do a lot of the implementation of these policies?
I think the first thing and why we did this report is so people can see and understand that actually this energy transition is going to result in job growth in Canada. It's a good news story, and that there's growth in a whole variety of sectors. So there's growth in making more clean energy, and in particular, things like solar, wind, hydrogen. So here in British Columbia, where I am, it predicts there'll be 2,000 jobs in cleaner hydrogen by 2030. Same with provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan. Other areas of growth are, say, in making things more energy efficient. I like to call it wasting less energy. So in buildings, growth for insulators in building retrofits so they waste less energy, or electricians, HVAC operators installing electric heat pumps. For the auto sector, it's transitioning to electric vehicles, building electric vehicles, electric buses, and then clean energy technologies. There's a real opportunity for battery production here in Canada, and we can dive more into that conversation. But battery production and working in assembly plants, putting those together, or things like innovation and entrepreneurs making clean energy storage and other new ideas like that to reduce energy consumption.
Right. I want to talk about a sector that we normally don't think about when we think about clean energy, and that's mining. And of course, this is where we get into the battery conversation. There's a lot of concern that China, in particular, kind of monopolizes the critical minerals for batteries, and so countries like the United States and Europe both are looking at shoring up their supply chains, and Canada will be big part of the American supply chain as well as our own. And I think that and provinces like British Columbia have a lot of mines, so that's got to be a good news for a lot of people who live out in remote communities, or north or the north, places like that.
Absolutely. So Canada's been identified as one of the top 4 countries in the world for battery manufacturing. The real competitive advantage Canada has is both that we can mine here in a responsible way. We can use our low carbon electricity to power those plants. We have 83% emission-free electricity right now, and we could grow that to be 100% zero emission electricity. So if we chose, and we also have the opportunity to build these mines in ways that are in cooperation, in partnership with Indigenous peoples, moving towards reconciliation efforts. So that's another opportunity for Canada. But we're advocating that we not just be the supplier of metals and minerals. And you're right, we have all the metals and minerals here in Canada needed to make batteries. That's why we've been identified as one of the top 4. But let's actually make the batteries here. Instead of exporting our great raw materials to somebody else, let's actually manufacture every part along the supply chain. We actually already have various battery manufacturing companies in Canada that are making the pieces, the anodes, the cathodes, that are putting them together into cells and then into batteries. But this is an area for huge growth. Batteries are going to be in demand, both for electric vehicles, electric trucks, electric buses, all the electric transportation opportunities, as well as energy storage for electricity systems. So this is I think of batteries as the drivetrain of the clean energy system. And this is an opportunity that nobody was talking about a few years ago, and that Canada's really got to move quickly on. We do have all the potential to be a leader and to actually grab that opportunity and land the battery manufacturing on this side of the border is going to take some real effort on the part of governments, provincial, municipal, federal governments. But I'd say it's one huge growth opportunity, and that the job number that we talked about, 640,000, could grow to be even higher if we really double down on battery manufacturing.
Well, let's finish up our conversation, Merran, with talk about, we need to do things quicker. And one of the ways to do things quicker is to mobilize the public, mobilize public support. And I think, my opinion is that the public conversation in Canada around clean energy, clean tech, and the opportunities, including jobs, is maybe not as advanced as it is in other countries, like take Europe, for instance. And that needs to be fixed. We need to start talking more about it, explain more, have better narratives, that sort of. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think in general, Canadians want to be environmental stewards. They want to have climate action and do the right thing. But we haven't had enough education here that really translates that into what does that mean and how does that connect to clean energy. Energy has been such a polarized debate in this country, and I'd say what we're trying to demonstrate with this report today is that a lot of these jobs are going to transition. So workers today who are working both in the oil and gas sector or in sectors like, truck drivers where they're driving gas-fired trucks, they're going to transition into the clean energy sector, driving electric trucks. As people move into these technologies, they actually get really excited. And so it's about, making Canadians much more aware that, if you're mining, that mine can become cleaner. It can be powered by clean electricity. We're seeing that in some places in Canada already. And that's part of the clean energy transition. So there's lots of opportunities here. And I think Canadians, once they see the opportunities for jobs, good family, stabilizing jobs, because these are good jobs, there's going to be increasing support and messaging to the government.
Well, Merran, thank you very much for your insights. Really appreciate this.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me today.